welcome to the Clan Hatton Association YouTube channel and also the Touch Not YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here with us. And it's Cats and Coffee. Got my coffee. Ray, I'm happy to see you.
Hi, Cindy. So glad to be back for Cats and Coffee.
It's
The
been a
studio hasn't smelled this good with brewing coffee in a long time.
It's so wonderful to be back here with you. And it's been a dicey summer. Got back from all the traveling. You know, I won't talk about it too much. You might notice a little bit difference in my face here. It's disturbing when you get numbness, especially in your face, and you don't know what's going on, and it gets worse and worse for about a week, and then you're like, oh my God, I have a stroke. Anyways, I'm okay, but it's been challenging.
Oh my gosh.
So if you see something different, guys, than from the other videos, it's gonna come back. It'll be okay. I'm gonna be okay. It's a little thing that people get from time to time. It is not a stroke, and I appreciate your patience. And I've missed everybody, and I've missed being on here with you, Ray, for Cats and Coffee. I'm anxious to hear about all the things you've been doing. I really hope all of our viewers here have been tuning into the Touch Not channel, and you know, I've got some catch up to do with some of the clans we've been spotlighting. Well, I've not been on that much. And so we will do the catch up between now and the end of the year. And
Good.
but in the meantime, I hope everybody's watching what you're doing over on the Touch Not channel. And Ray, what's this spotlight clan of this month? And we're already in the month of October. It's hard to believe.
Right. Right. MacPhail is for October. Shaw was last month, so look for that, folks. There's a Cats and Coffee about Shaw, but this is MacPhail month for October. Yeah, and I've been doing several different little segments, I guess, with that. My grandson Benny has done a few with me. You've seen him before, probably in a few other months lately. We do a little thing. We go out hiking, and we call it On the Trail of Clan Hatton and its history. So we're on the trail of Clan MacPhail, excuse me, this month. So we talked about the origins of Phil a few different times. And a fellow you might recognize the name of, John Paul Jones. Benny and I talked about him as well. He's a famous that would fall under the names of Phil. He actually took on the name Jones later in his life as to, let's say, cover for one of his episodes, of which he had many colorful ones, let's say. So he's a Paul. And whether or not he knew himself as a Klansman is different, but it's a different story, I should say. But he was a privateer in the Revolution here in the United States, in our revolution to become the United States. So quite a character. Benny and I talked about him for a while. I could do 2 hours on him. There's so much that he did. And Clan MacPhail is one of and Clan Fail it's known as well. It's one of the oldest clans. You know, like. That probably came from the Catanacks. We talked about the Catanacks before, Cindy, I think, being of the old stock with the McPhersons way back before the marriage of Ava to the Macintosh. So they've been around in the story for a long, long time. Perhaps not with that name, but again, always have been there, as we've seen in other cases, right?
Yes, and also originally and coming from Gilly Catton's posterity, Graham Mackenzie, and gosh, I almost have that video done. Everybody's got to see that video, and you've got to watch Ray with Benny. It's so cute. I'm going to post a picture here. So cute and wonderful, and what a wonderful thing to be able to do with your grandson. I'm so in awe and inspired by how you take him out and go on these trails. And just to mention Clan Fail, so we have this, you know, this book, and I'm sure you've talked about it and referred to it. And this is from
Yes.
our friend John MacPhail, who is the president and founder of the Clan Fail Society. And of course, Fail meaning Paul, and MacPhail meaning son of Paul. From one of our previous Touch Nots, this is from 2014, 10 years ago. These are
Wow.
just wonderful magazines, and they're full of such great information. And so here we have the president, our friend John MacPhail, who's on the Clan Hatton Association Council as well. And And he is the one that we were referring to who started this society. John's been involved with Clan Hatton Association since 1990 and a council member since 1995. He's the founder and the president of MacPhail Society, the MacPhails, which he formed in 1986.
Oh,
Also a freeman of the city of York and a local councillor where he lives with his Rhodesian Ridgebacks. His, the MacPhail history is a history of people and the MacPhauls of Irby, both of which are family and clan histories. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. You know how I am pronouncing things. Over the years in the CCA Council, he's had the pleasure of supporting and working with many loyal and enthusiastic clansfolk, none more so than the current council. Now, this was back in 2014. He has had the honor of also knowing many of our clan chiefs and their families who have always been so helpful and supportive in the work that he's done on behalf of the Clan MacPhail and the MacPhail Society. In 2009, he had the honor of signing the 600th anniversary of the signing of the Banda Union. We were all there. Some of us were there together. That was wonderful. And I'm going to link also to, I did an extensive interview with him. I was able to get him on earlier this year as one of our first people to come on from the council. And so I'll link that here. It's very in-depth about the Clan Fail.
oh,
And
good.
yeah, and his history, his personal works that he's done. And this book, and back at that time is when he's sent us, Ray, this new book. Actually, he revised it. He wrote the original one and then did a revision in 2010. And so here it is. And you can find this on our new Clan Hatton Association website for sale if you're interested. So, Ray, what's you been up to?
Well, let's see, September 20 through 22, I was up at Loon Mountain in Lincoln, New Hampshire. We had a great weekend up there. That's a huge event. As you can imagine, it takes 3 days. Most people go for one day. These days, after COVID, they started doing a one-day ticketing system. It's a little bit different there now. It's a little bit expensive to go for the whole weekend, but still some do. It's at the ski area there, which is tons of condos all around there. It's quite a nice town, just filled with restaurants and other things to do. So that was a great weekend. I did an interview on site there during the day. I think it was on Sunday with Ross McEwen. He's a heraldist. He was over here to do a seminar series at the New Hampshire Highland Games, as well as another talk series in Boston following that. So we did a talk at the tent. That's on the Chestnut channel about not as much about heraldry, but about Ross's take on what he sees here in Highland Games compared to back home in Scotland where he lives, which was very interesting to hear. Very much so. What he thought about our parade there and our yelling our clan cries and all that. How he drew actually not I was going to say parallels, but not many from Scotland. He wishes there were. So we talked about the differences in Scottish culture here and how it's being preserved here a little bit more, or a lot more than in Scotland. That's his campaign, and mine and yours as well, Cindy. Perhaps to get this back home in Scotland. You know, we're really incubating it here, is what Ross and I talked about, and then we're sending it there where the games can revive and get bigger again, which they've started to, according to him.
Well, yes, and if you remember, we were talking with Denise and Donald, and they sent over some footage, which is also on this channel.
Yes.
From just this year in Inverness, they had the first ever clan march with the
Right.
flags. They did that, and hopefully they were inspired by seeing some of the clan marches from the States, including Grandfather Mountain. So it's exciting to see that participation, and they're trying to get more of the clans, the Highland clans, involved and have formed a society. So we'll continue to watch them. Speaking of Grandfather Mountain Games, we did want to say a huge, we're just thinking about all of you who've been affected by the terrible hurricanes that have come through
Yes.
the South. I mean, I cannot believe um, we are talking on, what is it, October 15th, Ray, and there are still people without power
Hmm.
in the United States, have been without power. There are still people missing. There's just such devastation, kind of on the other side of the Blue Ridge Mountains from Grandfather Mountain. The surrounding communities near Grandfather Mountain have had things destroyed. They have destruction. They're all reeling, and our hearts and prayers go out to them. Our very own Virginia Kring has been helping in their community. She was helping with clearing the roads. Her and her husband.
Yep.
People have had to go out and cut fallen trees and clear the roads themselves. And their church, their local church, was feeding a whole town of people.
Right.
And we heard that the McPhersons, who were normally with Stone Mountain coming up this weekend, we heard that they had taken on some damage and may or may not be at Stone Mountain as well. We don't know the state that they're
Oh
in.
man.
I'll post some pictures here, but really we're praying for all of you. And we are thinking about you, and it saddens us. They're already beginning to cancel some of the things in the South on the East Coast, some Highland activities. And so anyway, just wanted to let you know we are thinking about all of you.
Yes, thanks for saying that, Cindy. I did read that there was about 20 trees and more down, not just on the Grandfather Mountain property there itself. And my brother lives in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which was right at the center of a lot of this. And his house is okay, his neighborhood is okay, but a lot of their town is not there anymore. They couldn't leave their neighborhood for a long time. They didn't have power or water for a week and a half, and so they're doing okay now. But yeah, thanks for mentioning all that. It is a terrible thing, and I know Virginia Kring of Clan McThomas, like you mentioned, she was, and people all over the South and from up in New England here, they mobilized and went down there, and that's what's going on here.
We're going to be at Stone Mountain Highland Games in Georgia, near Atlanta, Georgia, this coming weekend. And
Ah,
Dana DeBron will be there with me in the Clan Hatton tent. We will have the McThomases convening with us, Virginia Kring, in the tent. The McPhersons are supposed to be there. I'm not sure. Hopefully they will be very near to where we will be. If not, they'll be in the tent, the Clan Hatton Association tent with us. We're all family. And so come
right.
on out. If anybody's in the area, come on over to the Stone Mountain Highland Games, and we will be recording. And I'm actually going to do some live there. There's a good enough reception. We didn't have great reception when we were in Scotland, but there will be good enough reception there. Our very own Graham McKenzie will be at the host hotel, speaking and giving lectures. He's the one that wrote Gillican's Posterity, amongst many, many other historical works and genealogy. And so he comes to Stone Mountain Highland Games and lectures and gives classes about his research and what he's done. And so that'll be phenomenal. I'm hoping I get in early enough to be able to make it to one of those so I can record.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I will. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. And anyway, so he'll be there as well, and I'm excited to see him again. A whole host of activities. We are patrons of the Stone Mountain Highland Games, and we get in, and there's usually all of these meet and greets, because that's one of the largest games, in the US. It's a very big one. And my husband is a drum major, and he is
Yeah.
senior drum major for the event. So he's got a lot of responsibility with all of the pipe bands and
Oh,
um,
wow.
and with the people who put it on. So I'm also going to link here. I have the last year's Stone Mountain Games that I covered. And so you can actually watch that here if you'd like to see it. And hopefully anybody in the area who can come, please come on out. It's a beautiful, it should be a beautiful weekend. And lots of Macintoshes, Ray. I don't know if we've talked about this before. I didn't realize
Yes,
how many Macintoshes were in that area. Of course, there's a Macintosh County in Georgia, but um,
right.
rich and deep history of Macintoshes in the Atlanta area. And so there's a whole Macintosh pipe band, lots of Macintoshes. So I'm really excited to be
Oh,
there in a very official way with the association this year.
right. Indeed. Well, get us some contacts down there, won't you? So that next
Yeah.
year, if we do the calendar again in January, we can maybe interview someone from their band or do something or other to that effect. That would be great if you could.
Excellent point. I will do that. They usually bring a set of pipes with them so I can jump in and play mass bands. It's been so fun and absolutely wonderful. I still can't play my pipes right now, which is a bummer. So I won't be able to do it this year, but
Oh, is that
year
right?
I'll do it. I can't, I just can't do it. But
Yeah.
next year I'll be 100%. So but it's great fun, wonderful people. Um, and as you know, Ray, I mean, I think all of the games that we do, it's just full of wonderful people. You meet so many amazing souls that are really enthusiastic about their Scottish heritage, and people who come and just want to learn, and they get so excited when you're able to help them put some of the pieces of the puzzle of their ancestry together and set them on the right path to finding out more about that. That's really what this is all about and what we do, and the energy that people give us and we're able to help promote this history and ancestry is it's really worthwhile, I feel like.
Indeed, Ross McEwen and I actually talked about that a little bit in my interview. Also, the feeling that we get when actually it was a little bit of a funny point I made, that you might have said a sentence that you're about to say to the next person. You've said it like 1,000 times already to people, but they've never heard it before, and it's important that you say it just like you always do to them. And when you deliver them, the news that they're this Clint or that, and they don't know it, the look on their face, the appreciation is really nice. And I know I've said this a million times, even on the Cats and Coffee, but it's a feeling we get from this that makes it all worthwhile, folks. I think it's true. They get a feeling too. It's great. I know they appreciate it so much, but being able to give that to someone is really a privilege, or so, I guess that could be the word.
It is a privilege, and I'm so grateful to be able to be part of it, and you as well, right? And how about, let's ask this. Everybody who's been to a Highland Games, why don't you put a comment below? Tell us which Highland Games you've been to, if it's one of the ones we've been at or a different one, if you've got any pictures and photos to share. Just comment in this section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Of course, it helps our channels. We like putting out tons of content, and it'll help
Yes.
with YouTube to get this out to other people. If you can click that like, comment, and share. If you like what you're seeing, share this with your friends and family.
Yes, one other point I wanted to make. You mentioned that Ken is a drum major.
Yeah.
Another interview I did there was with my friend Paul Ritchie, who has been a drum major for a lot of years here in New England. So there's an interview there about on the channel about with him as well. It got a little loud here and there because we were outside and some pipe bands were near us intermittently, and I'd talk. We had to kind of yell and then not, and so I had him go through some of the moves with the mace, and he talked about what he does with it and that kind of thing. It was neat.
That's amazing. Well, and I'll go ahead and post a link in the description. So there's a lot of links in the description for everyone, 4 or 5 at least. But please take the time to go in there and watch and listen to some of these interviews.
Back to the old standby of this year so far, The Minor Steps of Clanhatton by Charles Fraser McIntosh.
Wonderful.
uh, with my Queechy Scottish Games in Vermont bookmark.
I love it.
Little plug, that's for next year. Okay, the MacPhails of Inverarny. In Sir Aeneas's Mackintosh Memoirs of Clanhatton, the MacPhails appear in the list as number 14 of the tribes, and that they took protection about 1500 from the Mackintosh. In the Kinrara history, it is said that in the time of Duncan the Eighth, who was 1456 to 1496, Paul Gow, good sir of Andrew MacPhail, the priest, of whom the Clanphail had their beginning. There's that name Gow. We've heard that before with the MacPhersons, right?
Yes.
With that. So this man, perhaps he was Paul the blacksmith. I don't know that, but he's called Paul Gow, good sir of Sir Andrew MacPhail. I'm not sure if this is saying he works for Andrew MacPhail or what. At any rate, this Sir Andrew, grandson of Paul, the first of MacPhails. So this would have been the man that they think is Paul Cadenac. Sir Andrew is his grandson, and known as the first of, his grandfather was the first of MacPhails. He wrote the third of the three histories of Clanhatton, upon which Kinrara founds in part his history. So Kinrara is a person, it's a title and it's a document both. And we say the Kinrara. This here refers Kinrara as a person, which means he was Mackintosh of Kinrara who wrote that.
He was the brother of the chief. Because he resided in Kinrara, he was known as Mackintosh of Kinrara.
All right, one of the side branches, but not the chiefly branch, I see.
Yes, he was the brother.
Okay. The Reverend Lachlan Shaw, historian, when dealing with the parishes of Daviot and Dunlichty, refers to MacPhail of Inverarny, the chief of that ancient tribe of Clanhatton. The family did not acquire Inverarny until 1631. The name is to be found at a much earlier period and was common among ecclesiastics. That's a little bit of a trend, isn't it? I mean, the MacLeans as well, so many ecclesiastics there. The first MacPhail I have noticed was named Gillis. He died prior to 1500, his place of residence not being mentioned. He married Margaret Mackintosh, who bore to him John, Paul, Margaret, Catherine, and Agnes. Okay, this is getting a little tired here, folks. Sorry. Let's see here. Gillies MacPhail, Donald McGilvray Farquhar, and Alexander McAllister. His men and dependents for the wrongness, occupation, and laboring. Oh, they were, okay. This is kind of backwards, but they were kicked out of a place for the wrongness, occupation, and laboring of lands, which means, I think, squatting. Sounds like they were occupying and farming someone else's land. So these were all, lying within the sheriffdom of Inverness. They were banned for the space of 1 year, last bypassed. Then he goes on to state another court document. In a deed dated in Inverness in 1594, two of the witnesses were Andrew MacPhail, minister of the Word of God at Croy, and Sir Vinus MacPhail, minister of the Church of Petty. So these were both ministers. Now, these are ministers of, you may know this better than I, Cindy. They're not Catholic ministers. They wouldn't be married and have families.
You had quite a lot of Highlanders that were Catholic prior. And I want to say
yes.
that a lot stayed Catholic still to this day. And all of the or sometimes between the Catholics and the Protestants. But then some did become Protestants. So particularly they may by that time, by that year, have been Protestants. And so they were, of course, able to have families.
MacPhails did not acquire a heritable right to Inverarny until 1631. when they were granted a wadset in long tack to Inverarny. Duncan MacPhail therein described as of Inverarny, facing the River Nairn, which is many of the Clanhatton. This runs through a lot of the Clanhatton lands, doesn't it? Nairn. Strathnairn is it's the land about Nairn. It's the Strath is the land's about a river, and Nairn is the ending word, right? Strathnairn in the parish of Dalrossie, and have for more than a century been divided to the family of Farr, still forming part of that estate. McGilvery of Dunmaglass comes into this now too. Westerlerg's being acquired by McGilvery of Dunmaglass. So this Inverarny area seems like it may have been they may have been a tenantry of Dunmaglass at one time, not all of which was McGilvery property. Because we talked about McGilvery had that for a while and then lost it.
Yes, that's correct. It's another piece of the puzzle, it's been fun. We always talk about this. It's fun to delve into it. And the more you learn, the more you have to go further back to find out, why is this a piece of the puzzle and how does it fit? And here's yet a piece of the puzzle. And I just wanted to show this picture, the gravestone of Donald MacPhail, 9th Chief of Fellows of Inverarny, whose stone is chiefly enclosed of the Shaws and MacPhails at Dunlickety. And so here's a picture of that in John MacPhail's book. Maybe I can do a better picture. But beautiful.
No, I think this other volume I have here may be, it's certainly one of the sources of that green book, but I think we can, now I mentioned this in a couple of my segments. Look at the, I have about 45, oh my God.
It's good to mention always too that, like for instance, this is a revised by John MacPhail edition of his book, and A.N. McIntosh or Alexander Fraser also revised his writings in his books. And when you talk to people who write these historical books about history and ancestry, they will tell you that once they get to the end of the book, they're still making changes. New information's always coming to light. And whilst many of these works are based on the transcripts, like the Kinrara, the Farr manuscript, the 1467, and also keeping in mind that each principal clan leader who's keeping transcripts and manuscripts would have had a different perspective on the same exact event in history, depending on their own perspective. So it really takes a lot of work and research to go through all of this. And then inevitably, once in a while now, even new information comes to light. A new manuscript comes to light, a new account or a new letter. So it's a living sort of history, and you could never say, although, we try to be very accurate with, in the Kinrara, here's what's been put down. Most of it is probably like, I don't even know, I'm not an expert, but I would say 85 to 90% accurate. But then new information comes to light, and so you've got to add to the existing history or add a different perspective depending on the clan.
They'll all put their own slant on that, and why wouldn't they? You and I would do too, maybe even unconsciously. That just happens.
Here's my side of this war. Well, here's your side of that war and your perspective on that. So, and it's funny, because you see the Camerons website, and we know what we have written for our history, like the Battle of the 30, the Battle of the North Inch, and their perspective on it versus our perspective on it. So it's fun, but you can clearly see that's a different perspective.
Yeah, one cleanse might characterize something as an unprovoked attack when it was really just a long memory of what they did 2 years ago to them, and they forgot all about it or whatever. And
Yes.
that can easily happen, I'm sure. Things
Well,
like that.
and the fact that the Camerons were squatters in Luck Harbor and
Right.
they wouldn't leave. And even though, you know, they kept being told, you got to pay Clan Hatton, you got to pay the Macintoshes for squatting in their land and using their resources. And you don't have a legal right title to it. And despite the fact that the Camerons only ever won one battle in that whole situation, they still didn't leave. But then when you read Gilligat's posterity, they all had kind of, you know, the Macmillans and the Macmillan branch of Clan Cameron had a, you could say, arguably had a claim.
Right.
They were the uncles. They had a claim to that land, especially if it had been abandoned by Ava
Sure.
and Angus. So there's always something where you learn something new and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Right. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad we're back together here, Cindy.
Me too. It's wonderful to see you, Ray. And thanks for keeping up your enthusiasm and getting out there and all things Clan Hatton with the association, for the association, and also
Oh,
just having fun doing it and watching you with your little grandson. Stone Mountain is the final games of our season, and then of course right after that we've got St. Andrew's Day, you know, in November on my schedule. Stone
yeah.
Mountain is the final games of our season. Do you have anything else coming up on your radar?
No, no, we don't. I actually couldn't make it to Connecticut last Sunday. They had the Connecticut event. I had to take some care of some things at our campground because a tree came down on our camper this year. So there was things to worry about that at the end of the year to close it up, which it isn't yet. At any rate, we couldn't make it to that one, but I think some people might have filmed some things for me there, which I'm going to try to get on the channel if that happened. They asked me, they offered to do it, so I said, yeah, anything you think is interesting. That's all I do is I walk around and find cool stuff for everybody. So hopefully we'll get part of that. But yes, it's the end of the schedule here for New England. So we'll be talking next thing. We'll be getting ready for Robert Burns.
As we head into the holiday seasons, you know, I've decorated for autumn and you can't really see it, but I brought you into my living room here because I use, I don't know if you can scroll down, I use a lot of Clan Hatton tartan, especially in the autumn. and then Christmas, it's all Macintosh because it's red and green.
Okay. Right. Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really fun. So please, by all means, please send us any pictures you might have. If you've been to the games where we've not been present, please send whatever footage and pictures over to myself and to Ray. In the description, I will have our email addresses. We would love to hear from you. We would love to interact with you, and just because we're only two people, we can't be everywhere. And you guys are other places doing other really fun things. We'd love to be able to show everyone else where you've been, what you've been doing, what you've been up to, what your interests are. So thank you so much for tuning in here today for another Cats and Coffee. We're happy to have you. Ray, thank you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Well, thank you, Cindy. Safe travels to Georgia. Say hi to everyone down there that I know or have not met yet. That's a friend of mine. And
We will.
so, all
We
righty.
will do. We will do. Touch not.
Touch
And
not.
everyone stay safe and keep in touch. Bye for now, and we'll see you next time.
Touch not, folks.